Hello, dear friend, and welcome to the amazing Sleep Story Tales. I'm so glad you're here with us tonight. Before we begin our journey through the life of one of the greatest kings Middle-earth has ever known, I'd love to take just a moment to connect with you, wherever you are right now. How was your day today? Was it filled with challenges that left you feeling a bit worn out? Or perhaps it was one of those ordinary days that somehow still managed to drain your energy by the time evening arrived. Whatever kind of day you've had, you're here now, and that's what matters. You've made it to this quiet moment, this space that's just for you. Where are you listening from right now? Are you tucked under your covers in a cozy bedroom, perhaps with the lights dimmed low and the world outside your window slowly settling into darkness? Or maybe you're on a couch, wrapped in your favorite blanket, finally allowing yourself to unwind after a long day. Some of you might even be listening while traveling in a hotel room far from home, seeking the comfort of a familiar voice and a soothing story to help you drift off in an unfamiliar place. Wherever you are, whatever brought you here tonight, I want you to know that this time is yours. For the next little while, you don't need to think about tomorrow's responsibilities or yesterday's worries. You don't need to be anywhere else or do anything else. You're exactly where you need to be. Take a deep breath with me, if you'd like. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold it for just a moment, and then let it out gently through your mouth. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel the tension beginning to melt away from your body. You're safe here, you're comfortable, and you're ready to let go of the day. Tonight, we're going to journey together through the remarkable life of Aragorn, son of Arathorn, who was known by many names: Strider, Thorongil, Elessar, and finally King Elessar Telcontar. His story is one of patience and preparation, of a man who spent decades wandering in the wilderness, preparing for a destiny that seemed impossible to fulfill. It's a story about never giving up, about staying true to yourself and your purpose, even when the path is long and uncertain. Aragorn's tale reminds us that greatness often comes not from sudden glory, but from years of quiet perseverance, from doing the right thing day after day, even when no one is watching, even when success seems far away. His story is one of hope. Hope that our efforts matter, that preparation will meet opportunity, and that even the longest journey can lead us home. You don't need to stay awake for the whole story. In fact, I hope you don't. This story is here to carry you gently into sleep, like a leaf floating downstream on a quiet river. If you drift off after 5 minutes or 50, that's perfectly wonderful. The story will be here waiting for you tomorrow night, or the next night, or whenever you need it again. So go ahead and settle in a little deeper. Adjust your pillow just the way you like it. Pull your blanket a bit closer. Close your eyes if you haven't already, or let them gently rest half closed if that feels more comfortable. Let your breathing become slow and natural, like waves lapping softly against a peaceful shore. Before we begin, I want to thank you for choosing the amazing Sleep Story Tales. It means the world to me that you've invited me into this quiet, personal moment of your day. If you enjoy today's story, I'd love for you to subscribe to our channel and join our growing community of dreamers and story lovers. We have so many more tales to share with you, each one crafted with care to help you find the rest and peace you deserve. And now, let's begin. Let's travel together to Rivendell, the last homely house where a young child arrived seeking refuge. A child who did not yet know his true name, who did not yet understand that he was heir to ancient thrones, who would one day become the greatest king of his age. But first, he would need to learn, to grow, to wander far and wide, preparing himself for a destiny that would take nearly 90 years to fulfill. Are you ready? Then let us begin our tale of Aragorn, the ranger who became king, the wanderer who found his way home, and the man who proved that patience, courage, and unwavering dedication can overcome even the longest odds. Breathe easily, relax completely, and let the story begin. In the year 2931 of the Third Age, in a time of growing shadow, a child was born who would become the greatest king of his age. His father, Arathorn, was the chieftain of the Dunedain, the Rangers of the North, who were the last remnants of the ancient kingdom of Arnor. His mother was Gilrain, a woman of grace and wisdom. They named their son Aragorn, and though they could not know it then, he was destined to restore the throne of his ancestors and unite the kingdoms of men. But Aragorn's childhood began with tragedy. When he was only 2 years old, his father Arathorn was killed by orcs while hunting with the sons of Elrond. An orc arrow found him, and the chieftain of the Dunedain fell, leaving his wife and young son alone in a dangerous world. Gilrain knew that her son's life would be in peril if his true identity became known, for he was the heir of Isildur, the last in the direct line of the ancient kings, and Sauron's servants would seek to destroy him if they learned he lived. So Gilrain took young Aragorn to Rivendell, the last homely house where Elrond Hæfilvin ruled in wisdom and power. Elrond had been the herald and foster son of Gil-galad, the last High King of the Noldor, and he had stood beside Elendil when Sauron was overthrown at the end of the Second Age. He understood the importance of Aragorn's lineage and the danger the child faced. Elrond took Aragorn into his household and raised him as a foster son alongside his own children. But he kept the boy's true name and heritage secret, calling him Estil, which meant hope in Sin Darin. Young Estil grew up in Rivendell, not knowing that he was heir to ancient thrones, knowing only that he was a child of the Dunedain under Elrond's protection. Rivendell was a place of beauty and learning, filled with elves who had lived through many ages of the world. The house was filled with music and laughter, with ancient books and scrolls, with maps and songs of old. Young Estil learned many things in those halls. He studied the lore of the elves and the history of Middle-earth. He learned the elvish tongues, both Sindarin and Quenya. He was taught swordsmanship and archery, tracking and woodcraft, healing and herb lore. But more than skills, Estil learned wisdom and nobility of spirit. Elrond taught him about duty and sacrifice, about the weight of leadership and the importance of mercy. From Elrond's sons, Elladan and Elrohir, he learned courage and the arts of war. For the twin brothers were great warriors who rode often against the orcs that plagued the northern lands. And there was Arwen, Elrond's daughter, Though Estel saw her rarely in his childhood, she often dwelt in Lothlorien with her grandmother Galadriel, and when she was in Rivendell, the young boy thought her a vision of beauty beyond his understanding, though he did not yet know why his heart stirred when he glimpsed her walking in the gardens. The years passed peacefully in Rivendell, and Estel grew into a strong and capable young man. He was tall, with gray eyes and dark hair, and there was a light in his face that spoke of his noble lineage, though he himself did not yet know what that lineage was. He learned quickly and well, showing aptitude in all his studies. But most of all, he showed a quality of character that marked him as special, a combination of strength and gentleness, of authority and humility. When Estel was 20 years old, the time came for him to learn the truth. Elrond called him to his private chambers, and there revealed to him his true name and heritage. He was not merely Estel, a ward of Elrond. He was Aragorn, son of Arathorn, 16th chieftain of the Dunedain, and heir through many generations to Isildur, son of Elendil. Elrond showed him the shards of Narsil, the sword that had been Elendel's and with which Isildur had cut the ring from Sauron's hand. The sword had been broken in that battle, and the shards had been kept in Rivendell ever since, awaiting the day when it might be reforged. "Here is the ring of Barahir," Elrond said, giving him an ancient heirloom, the most ancient work of men's hands preserved in Middle-earth. "And here are the shards of Narsil. With these you shall yet do great deeds." Aragorn learned that he was descended not only from Isildur, but also from Elros, the brother of Elrond himself, who had chosen mortality and become the first king of Númenor. Through his veins ran the blood of the great kings of old, and also the blood of elves, for his ancestor Elros had been half-elven. This heritage gave Aragorn and his line longer life than ordinary men he could expect to live, perhaps 200 years, if fate allowed, and a nobility of spirit that set the Dunedain apart. But with this knowledge came heavy responsibility. Aragorn learned that he was the rightful heir to the thrones of both Gondor and Arnor, the kingdoms established by Isildur and his brother Anarion after the fall of Númenor. Arnor had long ago been destroyed, its people scattered, surviving only as the rangers who protected the northern lands in secret. Gondor still stood, but had been without a king for nearly 1,000 years, ruled instead by the stewards who held the throne in trust for the king's return. If Aragorn wished to claim his inheritance, he would need to prove himself worthy. He would need to do great deeds and show that he had the wisdom, strength, and nobility to be king. And more than that, he would need to wait for the right time. For Sauron's power was growing again, and the revealing of Isildur's heir might draw the enemy's attention before the free peoples were ready to resist him. Aragorn accepted this burden with courage, though he was daunted by the weight of it. He was 20 years old, alone save for the scattered rangers of his people. And he was being told that he must somehow reclaim kingdoms that had been lost for centuries. But he did not despair. He had been raised by Elrond, and he had learned that even impossible tasks must be attempted if they are right. That same year, Aragorn met Arwen again, and his fate was sealed in a different way. She had returned from Lothlorien, and Aragorn saw her walking in the twilight in the gardens of Rivendell. She was singing, and her beauty was such that Aragorn thought for a moment that he was seeing Lethene herself, the great elven maiden of the elder days, who had been the most beautiful being ever to walk in mortal lands. Arwen turned and saw him, and she called him by his true name, Aragorn, Arathorn's son, chieftain of the Dunedain, heir of Isildur, Elendel's son of Gondor, and in that moment, Aragorn loved her with a depth and certainty that would shape the rest of his life. But Elrond saw what was growing between them, and he was troubled. Arwen was his beloved daughter, over 2,000 years old, one of the most noble and beautiful beings in Middle-earth. If she bound herself to Aragorn, she would have to choose mortality. For such was the fate of those of half-elven blood who wed mortals. She would die when Aragorn died, leaving Middle-earth forever. Elrond could not bear to think of losing his daughter to death. "My son, Elrond," said to Aragorn, "your doom is to be a great one, whether for joy or sorrow. But no choice of mine can change it. Yet to me you are dear as the son I might have had. Yet there is a sorrow between us, for I will not see my daughter bound to you in life, unless you prove yourself worthy in. That can only be when you have become king of both Gondor and Arnor." It was a test that seemed impossible. Aragorn would have to reclaim the throne and restore the kingdom before Elrond would consent to their union. And so Aragorn's personal love became intertwined with his duty to his people. He could not have Arwen unless he became king, and he could not become king without proving himself through great deeds. Aragorn left Rivendell and began the years of his wandering. For nearly 70 years, he traveled throughout Middle-earth, learning its lands and peoples, fighting against the shadow wherever he found it, and preparing himself for the day when he might reclaim his throne. He joined the Rangers of the North, his own people, and became one of their greatest leaders. The Rangers were a hard and weathered folk who patrolled the wilds, protecting the Shire and Bree and the other settlements of Eriador from orcs and worse creatures. They received no thanks for their work, for most folk did not even know they existed, but they continued their vigil nonetheless, the last guardians of a kingdom that had fallen long ago. Aragorn learned the craft of a ranger thoroughly, how to track in the wilderness, how to survive on little food and less comfort, how to fight against superior numbers, and how to read the signs of nature and the movements of the enemy. He became known as Strider among the Rangers, for he could cover great distances on foot with tireless endurance. But Aragorn did not limit himself to the north. He traveled widely, seeking knowledge and understanding of all the peoples of Middle-earth. He went south to Gondor, and there he served in the armies of that realm under the name Thorongil, Eagle of the Star. His true identity remained hidden, for the steward of Gondor might not have welcomed the heir of Isildur, seeing him as a threat to his own authority. In Gondor, Aragorn distinguished himself in battle. He led the forces of Gondor against the corsairs of Umbar, enemies who raided the coasts. In a daring assault, he led a small force that captured the haven of Umbar and burned the ships of the corsairs. It was a great victory, and Thorongil was celebrated as a hero. But after this triumph, Aragorn quietly departed, vanishing from Gondor before questions about his identity could become too pressing. He traveled even farther, journeying into Harad and Ron. the lands in the south and east where the Easterlings and Southrons dwelt. These were peoples often allied with Sauron, but Aragorn wanted to understand them, to see their lands and know their ways. He learned that even among the servants of the enemy, there were men who were not wholly evil, who served Sauron from fear or ignorance rather than from love of darkness. Throughout all his travels, Aragorn kept watch for signs of the enemy's growing power. He hunted for Gollum, the creature who had possessed the One Ring before Bilbo found it, seeking to capture him and learn what Gollum might know of the ring's whereabouts. After long searching, he found Gollum near the dead marshes and brought him to Mirkwood, where the elves imprisoned him. The years of wandering were hard and lonely. Aragorn lived roughly, often in danger, always watchful. He could not marry Arwen or claim his throne until the time was right. He aged slowly, as was the gift of his line, but even so, the years left their mark. His face became weathered and lined, his hands scarred from battle and hardship. He came to look like what he was, a ranger, a wanderer, hard and stern, and a bit frightening to those who did not know him. But beneath the rough exterior, Aragorn maintained the nobility of spirit that Elrond had cultivated in him. He was merciful to his enemies when mercy was warranted, just in his dealings, and protective of the weak and innocent. He bore his burden without complaint, preparing himself for a destiny that might never come to pass. Through all these years, he thought of Arwen. Occasionally, he would return to Rivendell and see her there, and they would walk together in the gardens and speak of their hopes and their love. But they could not wed, for Elrond's condition remained unfulfilled. Aragorn was not yet king, and until he was, Arwen could not bind herself to him. In September of the year 3018, Aragorn's long years of preparation suddenly became vital. Gandalf the Grey sent word to the rangers that the servants of the enemy were searching for the Shire and for a hobbit named Baggins. The One Ring had been found, and Sauron's hunt for it had begun. Aragorn went to Bree, a village where hobbits and men mingled, watching for any sign of the enemy's servants or of the hobbits Gandalf was expecting. He waited at the inn called the Prancing Pony, sitting in a corner and watching, his hood drawn over his face. When 4 hobbits arrived at the inn, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, Aragorn recognized immediately that these were the ones he sought. He watched them from the shadows, noting their innocence and their peril, for the Black Riders had been seen on the roads nearby. When Frodo foolishly put on the ring and vanished, attracting unwanted attention, Aragorn knew he had to act. He revealed himself to the hobbits, introducing himself as Strider and offering to guide them to Rivendell. The hobbits were suspicious of this rough-looking ranger, and understandably so. He looked dangerous and unkempt, and they had no reason to trust him. But Gandalf had left a letter with the innkeeper, naming Aragorn as a friend of mine, and one of the greatest travelers and hunters in the wild. Still, it was hard for the hobbits to trust him. Aragorn understood this, and he did not push them. He simply stated the truth. The Black Riders were hunting them, and without a guide who knew the wilderness, they would not reach Rivendell alive. I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, he told them, and if by life or death I can save you, I will. The hobbits agreed to follow him, though Sam remained deeply suspicious. Aragorn led them out of Bree before the Black Riders could attack in force, taking them into the wilderness where the enemy's servants could not easily follow. He guided them through the Midgewater marshes and toward Weathertop, the ancient watchtower where the rangers kept supplies. But at Weathertop, disaster struck. The Black Riders found them, and though Aragorn fought valiantly with sword and torch, driving back several of the Ringwraiths, the Lord of the Nazgul wounded Frodo with a Morgul blade. The wound was dire, the blade a cursed weapon that would turn Frodo into a wraith if it was not treated quickly. Aragorn did what he could, using Athelas, a healing herb, to slow the poison's spread. But he knew the wound was beyond his skill to heal. Only the elves of Rivendell could save Frodo now, and they were still many days away through dangerous country. Aragorn drove the company forward with desperate haste, barely stopping for rest, supporting Frodo as the hobbit grew weaker and weaker. They were met by Glorfindel, an elf lord of great power, who set Frodo on his white horse and sent him riding toward the ford of Bruinen with the Nazgul in pursuit. Aragorn and the other hobbits ran behind, arriving at the river just in time to see Elrond summon a great flood that swept away the Ringwraiths. Frodo was saved, and the first part of Aragorn's task was complete. He had protected the Ringbearer and brought him safely to Rivendell, but the greater test still lay ahead. At the Council of Elrond, where representatives of all the free peoples gathered to decide the fate of the ring, Aragorn revealed his true identity. He presented Narsil's shards as proof of his lineage and stated his claim to the kingship of Gondor. Some, like Boromir, were skeptical. Gondor had been without a king for so long. Why should they accept this wandering ranger now? But Aragorn spoke with quiet authority, explaining that he had not come seeking power for its own sake. He had spent his life preparing to serve his people, and now the time had come when his service was needed. The ring must be destroyed, and in that task, every resource would be needed, including the return of the king. When the council determined that the ring must be taken to Mount Doom, and Frodo volunteered to bear it, Aragorn immediately pledged himself to protect the ring-bearer. He would not let Frodo go alone into danger. 8 others joined them, forming the Fellowship of the Ring: Gandalf, Aragorn, Boromir, Legolas, Gimli, and the 4 hobbits. Before they departed, Elrond gave Aragorn a gift. Narsil had been reforged into a new blade by the elven smiths of Rivendell, and it shone with a light of its own. "Renewed shall be blade that was broken," Elrond said, giving him the sword. "The crownless again shall be king." The sword was renamed Andril, the Flame of the West, and it would be Aragorn's weapon in the battles to come. The Fellowship set out in midwinter, and Aragorn led them as a captain of the company. He shared the leadership with Gandalf, and the two worked together to guide the group through dangers. When the pass of Caradhras defeated them with snow and storm, Aragorn agreed with Gandalf's proposal to go through Moria, though he did so reluctantly, knowing the darkness that dwelt there. In Moria, the Fellowship lost Gandalf, who fell battling the Balrog. Aragorn was devastated by the loss of his friend and counselor, but he could not afford to despair. The company looked to him for leadership, and he had to be strong. "Come," he cried as they fled from the darkness. "I will lead you now." He brought them to Lothlorien, and there Galadriel spoke with him privately. She showed him her mirror, and in it he saw visions of possible futures: himself as king, or fallen in battle, or turned to evil. She tested his heart and found it true. When she offered her wisdom and counsel, Aragorn listened carefully, knowing that Galadriel's insight was beyond that of almost any being in Middle-earth. When the Fellowship departed Lothlorien, they traveled down the great river. At Parth Galen, the Fellowship broke. Boromir tried to take the ring from Frodo and was killed by orcs while defending Merry and Pippin. Frodo chose to continue to Mordor with only Sam, leaving the rest of the Fellowship behind. Aragorn had to make a choice. Should he follow Frodo and try to help him complete the quest? Or should he try to rescue Merry and Pippin, who had been captured by orcs? He chose the latter, reasoning that Frodo had chosen his path and must be allowed to follow it, while Merry and Pippin needed immediate help. With Legolas and Gimli, Aragorn pursued the orcs across the plains of Rohan, running day and night with barely any rest. They covered incredible distances, following the trail through skill and determination. Though they did not catch the orcs in time to save the hobbits themselves, their pursuit drove the orcs into Fangorn Forest, where Merry and Pippin were saved by the Ents. In Fangorn, Aragorn and his companions met Gandalf again, returned from death as Gandalf the White, more powerful than before. With Gandalf, they rode to Edoras, the hall of King Theoden of Rohan. There, Aragorn helped free Theoden from the influence of Saruman and encouraged him to lead his people to war. Aragorn fought in the Battle of Helm's Deep, standing on the walls through the long night as Saruman's forces attacked. When dawn came and Theoden led a charge from the gates, Aragorn was beside him, Andril bright in his hand. They drove back the enemy, aided by Gandalf's arrival with reinforcements. After Helm's Deep, Aragorn took a fateful step. He looked into the Palantir, the seeing stone that Saruman had used, deliberately revealing himself to Sauron. It was a dangerous move, for the Palantir could be used to control and dominate. But Aragorn used the strength of his will to wrest control from the enemy. He showed Sauron that Isildur's heir lived and bore Andril, the sword that had cut the ring from his hand. Sauron was shaken by this revelation, and in his fear he attacked Gondor prematurely, before his full strength was gathered. Aragorn's gambit had worked. He had drawn the enemy's attention and caused him to act rashly. But Aragorn knew he needed to reach Gondor quickly if he was to help defend it. He chose the paths of the dead, a road that no living man had walked in centuries. It passed through the mountain where dwelt the dead men of Dunparo, who had broken their oath to Isildur and were cursed to remain as spirits until the heir of Isildur released them. Aragorn walked that dark road, calling upon the dead to fulfill their ancient oath. "I am Isildur's heir," he declared. "Fight for us and win release from your curse." The dead followed him, an army of ghosts, and with them he captured the corsair ships that were sailing to attack Gondor. Aragorn arrived at Minas Tirith aboard the black ships of the corsairs, but with the banner of Elendil flying above. The people of Gondor, who had thought the ships were their doom, saw instead their salvation. Aragorn brought his forces to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and together with Theoden and Eomer of Rohan, they defeated Sauron's army. After the battle, Aragorn entered Minas Tirith, but did not go into the citadel. He was not yet ready to claim the throne. First, the ring must be destroyed, and Sauron defeated. Only then would he be truly king. Instead, he revealed another gift, the hands of a healer. He went through the houses of healing, tending the wounded with aethelers and the power of his will. The hands of the king are the hands of a healer, went the old saying. And those who saw Aragorn at work recognized that here was one who fulfilled the ancient prophecy. He healed Faramir, Eowyn, and Merry, who had all been wounded by the black breath of the Nazgul. His healing touch confirmed what many were beginning to believe, that the king had returned indeed. Aragorn led the armies of the West in one final desperate gambit. They marched on the Black Gate of Mordor itself, drawing Sauron's attention away from Frodo and Sam, who were struggling to ward Mount Doom with the ring. It was a strategy of desperation. They could not hope to win the battle, only to buy time. At the Black Gate, the host of the West was surrounded by overwhelming forces, but Aragorn stood firm, Andril in his hand, and called his captains to stand fast. Sons of Gondor, of Rohan, my brothers, he cried. I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. They fought without hope of victory, knowing only that they must hold as long as possible. And then, at the moment of greatest despair, the ring was destroyed. Sauron fell, his tower collapsed, and his armies fled in terror and confusion. The War of the Ring was over, and Aragorn had survived. The time had come at last to claim his throne. On the first day of May, in a great ceremony on the Pelennor fields, Aragorn was crowned King Elessar of Gondor. He took the ancient crown from the hands of Gandalf, who set it on his head, saying, "Now come the days of the king, and may they be blessed while the thrones of the Valar endure." Aragorn was 88 years old, having spent nearly 7 decades preparing for this moment. He had wandered in the wilderness, fought in countless battles, endured hardship and loneliness, all for this day. And now, finally, he could claim not just his throne, but also his love. For Arwen came to Minas Tirith at midsummer, traveling from Rivendell with Elrond and a company of elves. She brought with her the standard of Elendil that she had made with her own hands, embroidered with the symbols of Aragorn's house, and she came prepared to make her choice to forsake immortality and bind herself to Aragorn in life and in death. Elrond gave his blessing to their union, though it cost him dearly. "I have loved you all my days, Arwen Undamiel," he said to his daughter, "and now I must let you go. The choice is yours, and yours alone." Arwen chose love over immortality, accepting a mortal life with Aragorn rather than eternal life in Valinor without him. They were married in Minas Tirith, and their wedding was a celebration of joy and hope after the long years of war and darkness. Aragorn and Arwen ruled together in love and wisdom, and their marriage united the bloodlines of elves and men in a way that had not been seen since the days of Beren and Leitheen. Aragorn's reign as King Elessar lasted 122 years, and they were years of peace, prosperity, and renewal. He restored the North Kingdom of Arnor, reclaiming the lands that had been lost for centuries. He brought together Gondor and Arnor under one crown, fulfilling the ancient dream of reuniting the realms of Elendil. King Elessar was wise and just, merciful to former enemies and generous to friends. He made peace with the Easterlings and Southrons, treating them fairly and bringing many of them into alliance with Gondor. He renewed the friendship between men, elves, and dwarves, healing ancient wounds and fostering cooperation. With Arwen, he had one son, Eldarion, and several daughters. The line of kings was restored, and the blood of Numenor continued into future generations. Aragorn taught Eldarion all that he had learned, preparing him to rule wisely when the time came. The kingdom flourished under Elazor's rule. Cities were rebuilt, roads were repaired, and trade flourished. The white tree bloomed again in the courtyard of the citadel, a symbol of the kingdom's renewal. Art and learning flourished, and there was joy in the land after the long years of shadow. But Aragorn never forgot his old friends. Sam, Merry, and Pippin visited him in Gondor, and he welcomed them with great honor. When Gimli and Legolas came to Minas Tirith, Aragorn gave them whatever they desired. To Gimli, he gave the caverns of Helm's Deep, which Gimli transformed into a wonder of craftsmanship. Legolas brought elves from Mirkwood to dwell in Ithilien, making it green and fair again. The years passed, and even Aragorn, with his extended lifespan, began to feel the weight of age. When he was 210 years old, he knew his time was coming to an end. Unlike ordinary men who died when death took them, the kings of Numenor had the gift of choosing when to lay down their lives, leaving before their minds failed and their bodies became decrepit. Aragorn went to Arwen and told her that the time had come for him to depart. "In sorrow we must go, but not in despair," he said. "Behold, we are not bound forever to the circles of the world, and beyond them is more than memory." Arwen was heartbroken, though she had known this day would come. She had given up immortality to be with him, and now she would lose him to death, as all mortals must. But she did not regret her choice. She had lived a full and joyful life with the man she loved, and that was worth any sorrow at the end. Aragorn went to the House of Kings and lay down on the bed prepared for him. He said farewell to his son and his daughters, giving them his blessing and his wisdom. And then, with dignity and peace, he surrendered his life, closing his eyes for the last time as King Elessar of Gondor. He was laid to rest in the House of Kings, and all the land mourned him. But there was also celebration, for he had lived a great and noble life, accomplishing all that he had set out to do, and more. He had restored the kingdom, defeated the enemy, and ruled in wisdom and justice for over a century. Arwen did not long survive him. In her grief, she went to Lothlorien, now empty since Galadriel and Celeborn had departed. There, on the hill of Cirin Amroth, where she and Aragorn had plighted their troth, she lay down and died, choosing to depart rather than live on without him. What shall we say of Aragorn, who was called Strider, Thorongil, Eleazar, and finally King Elessar Telcontar? He was one of the greatest men who ever lived, combining the nobility of the ancient Numenorians with humility and wisdom earned through hard experience. He spent most of his life preparing for a destiny that he might never fulfill, wandering in hardship and danger without complaint. When the time came, he rose to meet it, leading the free peoples through their darkest hour to victory. And when victory was won, he did not grasp for power, but took up the crown as a burden of service to his people. His reign brought peace and prosperity to lands that had known only war and decay for centuries. He healed old wounds between peoples and restored hope to those who had lost it. He ruled not as a tyrant, but as a servant of his people, always putting their welfare above his own desires. But perhaps most importantly, he never forgot who he was or where he came from. Though he became a great king, he remained at heart the ranger who had walked the wild paths and protected those who could not protect themselves. He was equally at home in a royal hall or around a campfire in the wilderness. He could speak with farmers and warriors, with elves and dwarves, with the high and the low, treating all with respect and dignity. His love for Arwen was constant through all the years of waiting and through all the years of their life together. He proved that even the greatest of leaders can also be devoted in love, that strength and tenderness can exist together in one person. The line of kings continued through Eldarion and his descendants, ruling Gondor and Arnor for many generations. The peace and prosperity that Aragorn established lasted long after him, a testament to the wisdom of his reign. And the stories of his deeds were told and retold, becoming legend, inspiring future generations to courage and noble action. Close your eyes now and imagine Aragorn at peace at last, reunited with Arwen beyond the circles of the world. His long journey is over, his task complete, his burden laid down. He came from hardship and wandering to kingship and glory, and from there to the peace that awaits all who serve faithfully. Like Aragorn, you too are on a journey. You face your own challenges and carry your own burdens. You may not always know if you will succeed or if your efforts matter, but keep going as Aragorn did, one step at a time, doing what is right because it is right, not because success is guaranteed. And when your day is done, when your work is complete, you too can lay down your burdens and rest in peace, knowing that you have done what you could with the life you were given. Breathe deeply and let go of the day's concerns. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but tonight you can rest. Let the story of the king carry you gently into sleep, into dreams of forests and kingdoms, of courage and love, of journeys completed and homecomings earned. Sleep well, dear friend. May you rest as peacefully as Aragorn rests, your tasks complete, your battles won, your heart at ease. The end.